and welcome to the Convex Conversation with me, broadcaster Helen Fospero. Dame Flora Duffy is the reigning Olympic gold triathlon champion, two-time Commonwealth winner and world triathlete champion. And in just a few weeks' time, at the end of July, the Bermuda-born and raised athlete is heading to Paris to defend her Olympic title. Flora was favourite for 5 years in the run-up to Tokyo 2020, and her win was not only her first Olympic medal, but Bermuda's first ever Olympic gold. The pressure was on in 2020, but as we're about to hear, Flora's road to Paris 24 has been incredibly tough due to a serious knee injury. In fact, her absence from competition and subsequent drop in world rankings meant she needed a special invitation from World Triathlon to compete at Yokohama in Japan a few weeks ago. Crossing the line there was a major step towards her path to her 5th Olympic Games. Flora, it is lunchtime in the mountains of Boulder, Colorado. Have you been out and about already training this morning?
Yes, I have. I've done a swim session, which is a pretty normal thing for me to start my Monday off with. And thankfully, Mondays are a much easier recovery day after a big weekend of training.
How are you feeling at the minute?
I'm feeling good. I'm deep in training, so I'm definitely feeling pretty tired and a little bit all over the place and very conscious that we're on the final countdown into Paris. I leave in 3 weeks, so that means the race is in 4 weeks. And it's just kind of crazy that it's all crept up so quickly, but I'm feeling good and I'm excited to be in the position that I am in.
Fantastic. You've had a tough time, as I alluded to in the introduction, since we recorded our original Convex Conversation, which was 2 years ago, actually, in May. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but you didn't race at all in 2023. Just explain for us what happened.
So in 2023, I didn't race at all. I picked up a knee injury towards the end of 2022. Yeah, it's a bit of a complicated one to explain because I just also feel like it's gone on for so long that I'm even like, gosh, what is wrong with my knee? It seems like a multitude of things at the moment, but essentially I had a tear in my patella tendon and really, really bad tendinopathy. So I don't know, those in the sports world will maybe understand that, but it's not a great injury to have. And I've learned through this process that it's one of those that might fully heal, might not, something I'm just going to have to deal with for the rest of my career. And for whatever reason, the treatment that I started on early in 2023 just didn't really work. And you sort of have to try a treatment process for like 6 weeks, different physio exercises and whatnot. And that wasn't really working. So, okay, now we have to pivot and try something else. And before you know it, you've lost 3 or 4 months and you have nothing to show for it. And so eventually a series of PRP injections, which are platelet-rich plasma injections into my tendon, really helped. And that's a very common injection to help with tendons to speed recovery. Very, very painful and take a bit of time to recover from. But eventually that started helping my knee and turning the corner, and I started responding to my rehab. But this process took most of 2023, and it meant that I couldn't train that much that year either, because I kind of realized that the knee is used in swim, bike, and obviously run. So usually if you have an injury, you can cross-train a fair amount, but I really couldn't. So it was extremely frustrating, both that I couldn't train much and both that my knee just wasn't really responding. And here in Boulder, I'm connected to a lot of really high-level doctors. There's so many athletes around here that's kind of brought in a wealth of knowledge in the medical field. And they were trying their best. And it was just a very slow-moving, frustrating process. And then also in the back of my mind, I knew the Olympics was looming. And being in the position that I was in 2023 was certainly not ideal preparation for an Olympics in 2024.
Certainly not. And of course, in 2022, you competed very successfully, racking up all sorts of wins and a gold medal at the Commonwealth. Was the knee niggling in 2022 when you achieved all of that?
Yep. So my knee actually started bothering me right after Commonwealth Games. Commonwealth Games were the end of July, beginning of August. And sort of after that, it started really bothering me. But I was able to manage it and complete the rest of my season. And it was one of my best seasons I've had. So the end of the year, I was thrilled with how everything was going. And my knee was bothering me a little bit. But I thought, how bad could this get? And then January of 2023, it got so bad that running was impossible. And it just kind of ached and hurt all the time. 2022 was such a high and such momentum. And then to spend pretty much all of 2023, like wondering if my career was over because this injury just wasn't responding, was really difficult to deal with.
I was just going to ask you about that. Dan, your husband, was telling me that you didn't get anywhere near a start line in 2023. And in fact, I think I'm correct in saying you didn't race for more than 500 days, which is a long time. When you thought about maybe you might never come back, how difficult were those days, Flora? And what kept you going? Because for somebody whose life is at the top end of the sport that you've been doing since you were 7 years old, I would imagine there were some difficult times.
Yeah, it was very, very difficult. And honestly, I don't really know what kept me going. I think a part of it was the dream of racing in Paris. And the Olympics has always been a huge drive for me. And coming off winning in Tokyo, I thought, how cool would it be to go back in Paris and try to defend my title or just be there as a defending Olympic champion? Like, that's such a rare opportunity that people get. So that was a big driving force for me to keep pushing through all of this rehab and really tough times. And then also just as the year went on, I was just like, well, I just want to get healthy again and I just want to race again, just so that if this is the end of my career, I can finish by having raced and feeling like I'm back fit and reasonably healthy. That felt like a nicer way to end things than ending things extremely injured and just wondering if my knee would ever be healthy enough just to do normal activities. I mean, it's just normal being active post-professional sport life. So really kind of those two things kept me going. But there was certainly a lot of moments when I thought, well, this is just not going to work out. Maybe this is how my career ends. I've had all these great years and now I'm just going to end really injured and not have a nice, end to my career. You can't pick and choose that. And oftentimes it doesn't end exactly how you want. So yeah, I'm grateful that at least I'm back racing, back pretty fit. I have a shot of being competitive in the Olympics. I don't know how it will turn out, but even just being in this position, it feels already like a really big win.
And of course, once you started training again, is it like climbing a mountain, Flora, to get your fitness back? Because of course you'd had such a long break from it.
It absolutely is like climbing a mountain again. It is such a humbling experience. It feels terrible. And you're often wondering, like, how am I ever going to get fit enough to compete in these races? Or how am I ever going to get fit enough just to like complete a week of training? Because with triathlon, you have to do at least 2 or 3 sports a day. And that's a lot of like backing up hard work. And you're like, how am I going to get fit enough that I can actually do one of my normal proper days of training? And yeah, not to mention just feeling not like yourself at all. Like if you go to the track and I'm running with others and I'm the slowest in the group, or I'm getting dropped or suffering in the pool or not fast enough to ride with the people I normally ride with. And yeah, just really kind of, I guess, humbling yourself to where you are and having the patience to know that this is part of the process and this is just where you have to start after an injury. It's really, really tough and horrible. And yeah, I'm kind of glad those days are behind me.
I'm glad they're behind you too. And I'm glad that the next thing on my list of things to ask you about is Yokohama, because that was only in May this year. So you are back and you lined up for the World Triathlon Championships alongside other elite athletes in your sport. What was going through your mind when you were on that startup line, back in competition at last?
I was really nervous to be back racing because my training leading up to that hadn't gone that smooth. I thought I would be in like a much more confident space going into the race. But yeah, coming back from injury is really hard. There's so many ups and downs. So firstly, I was relieved and grateful to be on the start line because, as you mentioned in the intro, I had to get a special invite because my ranking had dropped. And this race and the race I did 2 weeks later in Italy, they were the only 2 races I had planned before Paris. And having such a long break from racing, I needed to do these races. So it was, grateful I got the invite. And it was nerve-wracking being back there because, you don't know what to expect. I don't know what my fitness level is. I haven't raced in so long. Will I remember what to do? Like, am I going to be last? Am I going to be kind of okay? And I'm coming back into the race as the reigning Olympic champion. It's not like it's quietly that I'm back there. Like, there's a lot of eyes on me and keen to see where am I at this close to Paris. But the race turned out pretty well. I was very, very happy with it. It showed I still had it. I wasn't last and crossed the line 7th. And I was thrilled with that and actually very emotional at the end, which is weird for me. That's not something that I usually show, but I think just all that hard work And all those lows of trying to get back and wondering if I ever will get back kind of hit me, that I was like, wow, well, I did it. Almost regardless of what happens from here, I finished top 10 in a major race, and like, I'm back and my knee is still intact on my body. So yeah, it's a very special moment for me.
How did that wave of emotion affect you, with the tears and everything as you crossed that line 7th?
There was tears, which is, again, so unusual for me. I mean, I didn't even cry when I won in Tokyo. I crossed the line, kind of gathered myself for 1 or 2 minutes, and then suddenly I was very emotional. And I did an interview right after as well. And again, in that interview, I was really emotional, like, tearing up and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is not normal for me. But yeah, I think that just showed how much it meant for me, because I mean, I finished 7th. And if you look at all my other results, that's a pretty just average result. But having context of what the prior 18 months had been, it felt like I'd won the race, and I was like, I'm back.
Because I think, Flora, you've been so successful and so dominant in your sport over the last decade, I'm guessing even the start of Yokohama was different for you, because I'm not quite sure how triathlons work, but I think there were 58 athletes already in place before you. Now, I'm guessing, as somebody who doesn't know loads about triathlons, that that's not normally where you would start, certainly not in the last decade. So mentally, that must have been tricky, I would imagine, as well, right from the start.
Yes, absolutely. I was number 59, I believe. Yeah. Which again, is not a start position I'm used to. I'm used to starting between rank number 1 or say number 5. And the better your ranking, typically the better pontoon position you get, which can radically change the start of the race. If you think about it, there's 60 women lining up on this pontoon and we're all swimming to the same buoy. So it can get pretty rough if you're in a bad position. Like, it can be very chaotic. So yeah, I'm usually used to picking like pole position, usually kind of get out, no one touches me, so on one of the far ends of the pontoon. But yeah, this time around I was like pretty much right in the middle, and I thought, this could get pretty bad for me. And sure enough, it did. The first lap was pretty rough. I came out much further back than I wanted to, but I've also been racing for so long that I knew that could happen. And I knew that on lap 2, I just needed to find my space and get into my stroke, and I could get back up towards the front, which is what happened. So I didn't panic, but it certainly is not nice. And I hope I'm not back there again. It makes a big difference.
Were your tactics different as well because of this? Had you got a game plan in your head because you knew it was going to be very different to starting right near the front?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing I knew was that the first lap could be pretty rough, or at least maybe the first 500-600 meters of the swim, of the 1,500 meter swim, could be pretty rough as you're kind of fighting people and getting around the buoys and navigating all of that. So I was just more mentally prepared for that, and just mentally prepared that, yeah, you might come out of lap 1 a bit far down, but I am naturally a stronger swimmer. And just to really kind of lean into that and have confidence in that I might have to pick my own line on lap 2 and dig really, really deep, because that is a crucial part of the race for me, is getting back up to the leaders, because I'm not confident in my run at the moment. So I know I needed to get out of the swim with the leaders so I could be in the lead bike pack. That was probably like the biggest change, of just being very mentally prepared that I might have to seriously back half this swim, because I won't be where I normally am. And that's okay. There's plenty of time to make up.
And is the run the most difficult part of the running, swimming and cycling for you, given the fact it is high impact, as opposed to, I'm sure the swimming you do is very different to the swimming I do, but swimming and cycling tend to be seen as more low impact, don't they?
Yeah, they're a lot more gentle on your body, and particularly where the run is last in a triathlon. So do hit it tired. And so for me, coming back from an injury, my fitness levels weren't as deep as they usually are, and I hadn't done as much run training as I usually would. So I knew that, well, 1, I'm going to hit the run pretty tired. And 2, I haven't done that much running. And 3, I haven't done a run off the bike since Abu Dhabi in 2022, November of 2022. And running off the bike, I'm sure a lot of people know, your legs don't feel great. You feel pretty jiggly and all over the place. So I kind of was prepared for all 3 of those, and knew that that's why the front half of my race, the swim bike, were really important, because I needed to set myself up to come off the bike in the best possible position because I really didn't know how that 10K would go.
And did you see, or do you see Yokohama as the start of the road to Paris rather than the end of the road to a long recovery?
Yeah, that's exactly how I look at it. It is like the kickoff to Paris. I think from there it was maybe 3.5 months to go. And that was like, okay, this is my first race. We kind of see where I'm at. What do we need to adjust? What do we need to work on? And from there, everything was just like adjusted and building towards Paris.
It feels like it was probably a solid start after a very large absence. The clock is ticking though now, Flora. I feel mean even saying that, but you know it's ticking. How are you feeling about Paris 24?
Yeah, the clock is definitely ticking. I'm feeling good about it. I'm feeling a lot better about it than I thought I would be. If you asked me in February, how would I be feeling 4 weeks out? I would have been like, probably not thrilled with where my form is at, but things have certainly turned a corner since those 2 races that I did in May. And even just doing those races, they gave me so much fitness. So from there, I've been able to train quite nicely. And I think I'm in a pretty good position. It's hard to know because to be really good, you need to be consistent with your training. And I had a year of being very inconsistent. So although my training is going well, being able to race at a very high level over a triathlon, yeah, I'm unsure how exactly that will go, how fast I will be able to run after a hard swim in the bike. Will I be fast enough to keep up with the leaders or will I not? Like, I don't know. It's a little bit of a mystery, but at the same time, it's kind of exciting because I didn't think I would be in this position to be competitive, but I am. So each week that goes by, it's just like I can almost see and feel my fitness increase, which is kind of cool.
And as you say, you're going back the reigning Olympic gold champion. That is quite something in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, yeah, very special to be going back as a defending Olympic champion and to be racing in Paris. And it, particularly after like Tokyo was a bit of, it was a COVID games. There was no crowd. There wasn't anyone there. So it almost, to me, it feels like regardless of the outcome, like I'm always going to be an Olympic champion. Like you always have it. Some friends are coming over, my family's coming over. And so it's my final Olympics. And it just feels like, well, this is a celebration of like my entire career and my entire Olympic career, which spans over a long time. So it feels like a special time. Yeah. Anyway, regardless of what happens. And that's, yeah, I think a very cool position to be in.
I think it's a very cool position. I'd forgotten, of course, that the streets were empty for Tokyo, and just the crowd alone, I would imagine the atmosphere will be magnificent. You're in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and it will just be an incredible experience. The Women's Olympic Triathlon takes place on July the 31st. Can you describe, Flora, what the event will look like in Paris and what's in store for you in terms of where each section of the race is taking place? And I think it's very much in central Paris, isn't it?
Yes, it's very much in central Paris. I mean, the Eiffel Tower is in the background of like every picture that could be taken of the race course. The Eiffel Tower is right there. We're racing on the Champs-Élysées. We're going by, I think, the Grand Palais, the Petit Palais. I mean, I don't even know all of these iconic venues, but each part of the course you describe and someone can name an iconic venue that we go by. We're also swimming in the Seine, so that's very rare and not common. So not many people can say that. So I think that alone is just already has an incredible atmosphere. And for last year at the test event, the crowds that came out were amazing. So I can't even imagine what it'll be like for the day of the triathlon. I think it's just going to be absolutely incredible. And so I think it's very important for me to remember to soak all that in and just remember it because I'm not coming back. This is my last time. And what a beautiful place to have your final Olympics.
Oh, it'll be absolutely incredible. I think the swim is starting from a pontoon on the River Seine. And that is, like you said, in the shadow of the Eiffel Tower. I know you like to be position 15 on the pontoon. What is the significance of 15 for you? And do you know your position at this stage, or is that given out much nearer the time?
Spot 15 on the pontoon is the position that I picked in Tokyo. So I picked that position, but the day prior, the men that won the men's Olympic triathlon also started on spot 15. And for your pontoon position at the Olympics, you pick it 2 days before your race at the race briefing. And it's kind of this whole procedure. And as I was walking into the briefing, he just offhand said, "Oh, Flora, spot 15, that's the shortest line." And I thought, haha, like, okay. I didn't even take it in. And then it just so happened that I got called up and you wanted to start as far to the right of the pontoon as possible. And for me, spot 15 was the furthest right I could start. So I said, oh, spot 15, cool. Didn't think of it. And then the next day, the men raced. And Christian started on spot 15 and he won the race. And kind of from that moment, I thought, oh my gosh, like then I got nervous. And then sure enough, the following day, I stood on spot 15 and I won. So that's why it's quite special. It's also really weird that we both picked that position. But going into Paris, it's a little trickier because of the Seine and with the current. Where you start really makes a big difference. And we are still trying to finalize exactly where we think the best part of the pontoon is. So it could look a little different than it normally would, with more people gathering in the middle of the pontoon, more of the higher ranked athletes gathering there, because that I think is where the current is the fastest. So it's quite tricky and a lot of things to think about other than just pulling out a random number of where you want to start.
And have you been to Paris to recce the route?
I have. So last year there was a test event, which I didn't race, but I went over there and I did the swim familiarization, the bike familiarization, and I watched the race in person, which was great. So yeah, doing both of those things have really helped and just helped me get familiar with just how the course is, what the bike course is like, how the corners feel, what it's like riding on the cobbles on the Champs-Élysées, swimming in the current in the Seine. Yeah, it's quite a technical swim. So there's so much thought that's going into exactly the lines that you're going to be swimming. Swimming in a river with a current really can throw the dynamic off a lot. If you get it wrong, you can really get it wrong.
It's such an exciting sport, Flora, because, when you look at it as an observer, you just think of the strength and the power and the speed that's needed and the endurance qualities to get you through all of the different disciplines. But when you start talking about that kind of thing, the currents and the cobbles on the Champs-Élysées, there's an awful lot going on, isn't there?
Oh, there is, for sure. Behind the scenes, there's so much detail that's paid attention to, whether that's across swim, bike, run, for the conditions, for the tactics. And I think for the person watching the race, if you're watching the people winning, you just think, wow, well, they just do it so easily. But you don't realize how much thought and preparation has gone behind every single part of the race that they've executed. They would have had a plan and would have thought about it. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And I guess combining the three sports and across the different conditions is quite a puzzle and makes it fun.
Oh, it certainly does. Now, you explained the pressure to me when we did our first podcast, because you were favourite for 5 years, 5 long years leading up to Tokyo. Hopes were so high. And we talked a bit on that podcast about how you dealt with that pressure. How are you dealing with it this time, in that you're going to defend your title? Or does it feel different this time because you're going as an Olympic gold champion?
This time round feels so different. And I think the big part of that is because of my injury, because I didn't race for all of 2023. And the 2 races that I did, they were good, but to the average person, they didn't seem spectacular. So that's definitely allowed me to be a lot more under the radar. If you're talking about favorites, the media and whatnot, the press, they're probably not saying my name. And I'm already not being talked about too much, which is really nice. So it feels like I'm going in under the radar, even though I am the defending Olympic champion. I think my competitors would be very aware of me, but I kind of expect that anyway. But in terms of how it feels compared to Tokyo, it's completely different, which is really nice. And I think also part of it is that I have won already. It's everyone's dream that's lining up there is to win an Olympic medal. And so the fact that I already have one, it's okay, that box is ticked. And as I said, I'm always going to be an Olympic gold medalist. So I think that also allows me some freedom just to enjoy it and know that regardless of what happens, I have a gold medal. So if I get another medal, that's fantastic. But if I don't, my life will go on just fine.
Your life will go on and you'll still have won the Olympics, but also you love gold, don't you, Flora? I know your eyes light up at the mention of gold. What expectations have you put on yourself?
That's the thing, is I am a very competitive person. So of course I have expectations on myself to go there and perform really well. And of course, I would love to win another medal, but I'm also trying to be kind to myself and give myself grace that I have come off a really bad injury and it's been a huge battle to get here. And just the fact that I am in pretty good shape and training's going well, that I already have to be super proud and pleased with that. So just if I can execute a great race and cross that line wherever I finish, just being happy that I gave it my all and I was tactically aware and savvy and took the chances that I could take, then I have to be happy with myself.
And I'm sure there were days in 2023 where you didn't think you'd be in a position possibly to line up for Paris. So just to be there, I would imagine, is very, very special. Just wondering about Dan, also a triathlete and massive support to help you through the last 18 months or so.
Yeah, Dan is a huge help. Yeah, he's my husband and he used to race triathlon, so he gets it. He gets this crazy lifestyle that we live, and he's extremely supportive, whether that's helping me with my training, facilitating some sessions, joining me on some rides, even just being there. So I'm just like, if I have a session I have to do alone at the track, him just coming along is already such a big help. And then outside of training, he supports a lot by doing a lot of the cooking and going to the grocery store and really just allowing me to focus on my training and recovery. And he kind of certainly handles and manages pretty much everything else going on, which is super helpful and just nice that you have someone in your corner that really believes in you and backs you and wants to fully support you on this kind of crazy quest to go back to the Olympics. So I'm very grateful for that. And he'll be with me there in Paris, which is just really helpful and nice and comforting to have somebody there in the days leading up to the race when you start to get nervous. It's nice that we could kind of go on this journey together and that he's very invested and supportive.
And great, I would imagine that he understands it. Having been a triathlete himself, he'll really understand the highs and lows of what you go through with training and injury in a way that perhaps other people who haven't competed, certainly in your sport, perhaps do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he kind of had to come along for the ride last year with my knee injury and manage all of the highs and lows that I went through. And also just kind of being very supportive through that, but also being very real. And I think that's important of like someone being like, you know what, if this doesn't work out, like you might have to call it and you might have to start thinking about that. And I think that's really important, not just to have yes people in your camp, like people that are going to be, this might not work out for you and you have to be okay with that because that's just how it might end. And so that's the hard part of it, but also very important.
With just a few weeks to go, Flora, what does your training regime look like at the moment?
Yeah, at the moment, it's pretty full on. I don't really have time for anything else. I'm trained roughly, I would say about 23 hours a week. And then you add in massage, physio, all the other sort of recovery stuff you can do, taking naps. It's pretty much my whole day sort of taken. And really, in these last few weeks, you just want to try and do as little as possible outside of swim, bike, run, and recovery because you just want to maximize this time that you have left. So yeah, it's very full on. On the weekend, I actually just did a little race simulation here in Boulder with a few of my training partners. So we did our own little race here in our tri-suits. We probably looked a little ridiculous. Again, those things are important because you really get a race intensity and get to go through swim, bike, and run back to back, just as you would in a race. So yeah, we're doing those sorts of things, which I wouldn't normally do. And it's pretty intense, but also just trying to enjoy that this is my final build-up. So be grateful for the position I'm in.
Are there days physically where you have to embrace the hurt? Because I'm imagining there are sore muscles some days.
Yeah, for sure. It feels like most days, especially for me now, because I haven't trained at this level for a while. That's why the recovery has been even more important for me because the training weeks I'm doing now, I haven't done since 2022. So your body is just like, what the heck is going on here? I have a lot of massage therapy that helps with my recovery, whether it's taking ice baths. So yeah, that's all like super important. And I have my days planned out when I have it and I can't miss it because otherwise my body will start to deteriorate quickly.
And what about mentally, Flora, when you're out on those long rides or long swims? Are there days when you just drift and you can enjoy it? Or at this stage of the game, do you just have to have absolute focus?
I try to keep a balance of both. Because I think it is important to allow your mind to forget that you are in your final preparation for the Olympics. Because if you're thinking about it 24/7, like you're just going to drive yourself crazy and it gets just very tiring just doing that. So anything easier that I have, yeah, you just let your mind drift, do it with friends, like other training partners that you can just chat about other stuff with. I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, so that's been keeping my mind busy of talking about her concerts and planning which concert I want to go to and just thinking about something that's totally not related to Paris. And then, of course, there are the sessions in the week, which are your key sessions, which you really do need to stay focused with. And that doesn't mean I'm thinking about parts of the Paris race while I'm doing this. It's just more being aware of, if it's a swim session, thinking of my stroke, thinking of my breathing, and just staying focused on the pace that I need to hit. Just kind of those sort of things, staying very much in the moment and not letting your mind drift to the race or anything along those lines.
I didn't have you down as a Swiftie, but I'd love to see Taylor Swift in concert. She's just played Wembley here in London. My daughter's been a few times. Have you seen her perform live?
I haven't, no, but I have picked out a show I would like to go to while I'm in Paris for the Olympics, obviously after my race, since she's in her European part. So yeah, I'd like to hop over and see her in Vienna. Hopefully, that would be a huge dream to do that.
When you're training, is she ever in your earphones when you're working out?
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
All the time?
Yeah, not all the time, but a lot of the time. And she just released a new album, so I've still got to get fully familiar with that.
You've definitely got to go and see her when you come over to Paris. Just talking about gold, you've won lots of medals. What's happened to your Olympic gold? Where is it?
Well, that's funny you should ask. It's typically in a drawer or on a shelf, but it happens to be right next to me right now. Not because I keep taking it out and look at it, but I had some other filming I was doing on the weekend, and the person filming me wanted to see my medal. So it happens to be here sitting next to me on the table. But that's the thing with the Olympic gold medal, is everyone wants to see it, which has been fascinating. It's got like such a, I don't know, it's just such a brand in itself, and it's so iconic that everybody that comes over to my house will be like, "Can I see your gold medal, please?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And just a visible reaction of excitement or goosebumps, or just like, wow, like here it is. So that's been pretty cool.
I do believe you that it's not just out by your side the whole time, that you got it out for a media interview. But does it make you smile, Flora, when you do take it out and show it to people?
It does. Yeah. It still feels a little bit surreal to me that this is mine, that I won this. But yeah, it's an incredible medal. I mean, I've won a few, but this is just so how heavy it is and thick and symbolic. And so, yeah, it's something that's I'm very proud of, and I don't know, very protective. Every time someone has it, you're like, "Oh, don't drop it. Be careful with it."
And you dreamt of it as a child, didn't you? Because you had started doing triathlon in Bermuda when you were just 7, but it really was your childhood dream, wasn't it, to be on that podium winning gold?
It was. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy that it all worked out and it happened. I mean, I did my first triathlon when I was 7, and I was hooked from then on. I joined a local triathlon club, and that kind of became my life. And I remember telling people pretty early on that I wanted to go to the Olympics and I wanted to win an Olympic medal, and being an Olympic gold medalist. That's my ultimate dream in triathlon, and so fulfilling that I actually did it, and that big dream came true.
What do you think you'll do, Flora? I know right now you are absolutely focused on Paris, but you know that it'll be your last Olympics. And are there other things in life that you think when you do hang your racing, I don't know what a triathlete hangs up, your cycle shoes or your running shoes or your cozies or whatever. But are there other things now? Because you're still so young. What else is out there that you would like to do? Or have you not really thought of that while you're in race mode?
Yeah, it's funny you say that I'm still so young, but I'm pretty sure I'm the oldest racing in the women's Olympic triathlon. I need to fact check that, but I think I'm the oldest, which is kind of funny. But post triathlon, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I feel like I'm so caught up in the moment right now, being present. I'm very aware that I'm towards the end of my career, but I think once I do finish, I kind of want to allow myself just some time to almost be normal. So that makes sense, of not having this like very regimented life of training and recovery and resting and skipping social events and almost having everything kind of revolve around my schedule. So that's something that I kind of want to just almost just relax and be a little bit normal.
Go to some more Taylor Swift and all that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Not worry about what time I go to bed. But yeah, I think in some way I'll always be connected to the sport, and I would ideally like to give back to it. I have a foundation in Bermuda that I would like to continue to build and get to a more sustainable level and give back to the community there. So I certainly have a few ideas, but I'm not, don't have anything set in stone and just kind of want to allow myself time to transition from it, because I know it will be a big transition, and just to soak up everything that has happened in the last few years.
And so much has happened. There have been some silver linings too since we chatted in 2022. You were named Female Athlete of the Year at the Global Triathlon Awards. How much did that mean to you?
That was cool. And it kind of caught me off guard a little bit because I wasn't expecting it. I was up against some women that had accomplished a lot in sort of the long course side of triathlon, 70.3 Ironman. And so, yeah, to receive that recognition was really cool. It was a glitzy night, so you had to dress up, which is also very rare to see everybody very dressed up and glam.
Well, we are all behind you. I know the whole of Bermuda is behind you, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your performance. I hope you enjoy the whole experience, Flora. Best of luck from all of us and everyone at Convex as well, who are one of your sponsors. Best of luck with it all.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to reigning Olympic gold triathlete Dame Flora Duffy, who's defending her title in Paris at the end of July after a difficult 2023. Download and subscribe to our series at convex.podbean.com or search The Convex Conversation on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to yours. And don't forget, you can still find Flora's first podcast she recorded with us 2 years ago. I'll be back next week with another great guest. Join me then.